Here in Australia, the government's independent media inquiry has been looking at the local industry. It's just finished hearing submissions and will report back to the Minister in February next year. So it's interesting timing to be joined by Paul Barry. He's from the Power Index, and this time he's here to discuss his new list of Australia's most powerful media moguls. Paul Barry, good morning. In fact, we don't often use the phrase media moguls at all anymore, do we?
No, it's a bit sad, really. It's gone out of fashion, and I think media moguls themselves have died off. Gone are the days when good old Sir Frank Packer could ring up his TV station and get them to replay the 2:30 race for his dinner guests.
Those certainly were the days. There's one or two, of course, who cannot be overlooked, and the oldest and the best known of them all, Paul.
Yeah, look, I mean, Rupert Murdoch obviously is still, you know, in the great Evelyn Waugh mould of Lord Copper, whom no one dares disagree with. His recent performance flying into Australia and, you know, tearing up his newspapers and sacking everybody inside, or at least getting rid of Hartigan, I think was sign that there's life in the old dog yet. It's interesting that his mother, Dame Elizabeth, is what, 102? So Rupert's only 80.
Almost 100.
He's got 20 years left. Yes. So he's survived. And,
it's a lot of fodder for you then.
Yeah, but he is really, he's not quite the only one, but because Stokes, Kerry Stokes has a sort of mogul power but doesn't really use it. And then there's people like David Leckie who run Channel 7 who behave like moguls even if they don't own the place. So, you know, there's still some very colourful people out there. No,
indeed, and you've even got our very own Mark Scott at number 3 position. Media mogul, is that the correct term for him?
Well, I mean, he doesn't actually own it, but he certainly has carriage of it, and I think he has. He's both the figurehead and the decision maker. I think he sets the culture of the organisation, and while clearly someone like Kim Dalton or the programmers will take individual decisions about, and indeed some of the current affairs people will take individual decisions, I think he keeps a very close eye on what happens, and I think he's very much set the direction of the ABC by modernising it and changing the technology and being at the sort of forefront of technology. So I think he's had an enormous effect. I think he's a worthy person in our list, frankly.
When you take a step back and you look at media players and powerful media figures, say thinking back to the long time that you've been working in the media in Australia, what do you see as substantially different?
It actually did occur to me as I was writing this list that all the people I was writing about had the capacity never to give me a job again. What's different? Well, it is, I guess, mainly the departure of those of the colourful old moguls, the people who ran the joint as if it was their own family business, and who set the political tone of it, and who terrified politicians because they could be so capricious. I think what you also see is that the media landscape is changing so much. A lot of these organisations, a lot of these mastheads are actually in trouble, and they may not last. So you look at Greg Highwood's job at Fairfax. He says the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age are not remotely threatened, but a lot of people looking from outside would say, well, he's got a very difficult job keeping them alive, and they've got to make the transition from basically stacks of newsprint landing on your front lawn to getting people to take it some other way. So there's a lot of technological challenges, and in TV you see the whole audience fragmenting as people go to online and people go to pay TV. So there's a lot of challenges for the people who run these organisations.
Indeed, and behind the scenes, and it's been happening for some time now, I guess, as well, you're seeing the financial situation and their support and their ownership change and move so quickly as well. That's been, coming on for some time, but now when we see a hedge fund with virtually a controlling interest in Channel 9, for example, that's a whole new ballgame.
Well, when you look at what happened to Nine and James Packer, who in some ways isn't taking a huge interest in how the station is run, he sells it for $5 billion. That so affects the future of the station, because from then on it is struggling under this great mountain of debt, and it's trying to cut left, right and centre, basically to stay in business. So that decision just to sell it for a lot of money has a profound impact on the way that place is run. But you look at something like the ABC as well. I mean, Mark Scott has taken it forward by investing in News 24, which we're on at the moment. That's put tremendous strain on the rest of the organisation, on the rest of the journalism, the sort of more traditional journalism in the ABC. And there's a lot of people quite angry about that. So money is everywhere, and money is ruling how everybody's going about their business.
As everyone tries to battle decide what the new business model, to use that cliche, might be, whether you're in newspapers or even in that fragmenting broadcast market, the next time you come about to do your media power list, what do you imagine might have changed? And will it be so fragmented that it won't be controlled or in the hands of one or two or even 10 key high-profile people?
Look, I think it's still going to be, I think if anything it's going to be more concentrated, frankly, because I think there's advantages in having a foot in every camp, and because the newspapers are going out on the internet and TV's coming on the internet, everything is converging. So I think there's a great advantage in being what they call a media content production company. So you produce journalism and you shove it out on a whole lot of different places. So I think it's going to be concentrated more, if anything. I think what's interesting is that Senator Conroy, who's also on our list, who's looking at the way in which all this stuff is converging and whether any of the rules that we have now can apply in the future. And I think that's the interesting question. Can you regulate this stuff? And he points to kids watching TV in the afternoon, for example. They come back between 2 and 4, it's regulated G. Between 4 and 6, it's regulated PG. But they're on YouTube, and that's totally unregulated. Yeah. It's unregulated also for Australian content. So all these things that have been important to us over the past, very, very difficult to regulate into the future.
Paul Barry, always good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Virginia.